So let's now move to the finals. It is Warriors Celtics. It's going to start in Golden State. I'm going to throw it to you first, John. Again, you're the Celtics fan here. How you feeling about this series? What's your prediction?
I feel pretty good. Obviously, the Warriors are a really scary team, and most people I've seen have been predicting that the Warriors are going to win. I'm not shocked by that because it's the Golden State Warriors, right? They have the experience. This is what their sixth NBA Finals, and that experience matters at this kind of level. None of these Boston players, I don't think anybody's been to the finals on their roster. Some keys to watch in the series for Golden State. It's going to be interesting to see how they employ their death lineup, right? Because the lineup that they're going to want to do is that small ball with Steph, Clay, Draymond, and then Wiggins and Poole. But if they can't destroy Boston on the offensive side of the court, I think they're going to struggle to defend against Boston because that's a very undersized lineup. And the Celtics are going to run out there with Marcus Smart. If they want to match size, they might take off Rob Williams or Horford and bring in Derek White or Grant Williams. But even then, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have size advantages over Poole or Clay, whoever's going to guard them. And if you put Clay and Wiggins on those two guys, well, then you got Poole on Grant Williams. And we saw even in this Heat game 7 that Grant is willing to, if they space the floor, he's willing to go and take that smaller guy down into the paint because he's very strong. So he can make it happen. If they're going to employ that lineup, and they're absolutely going to, they're going to have to be really efficient offensively because I think defensively they could struggle with that. But the same on the flip side for Boston is if they're going to go against that lineup, they can't just let them start going crazy with scoring. Boston throughout the whole playoffs have had these random moments in certain games, like, the Heat series, game 1, third quarter, where all of a sudden everything just starts going wrong. They're turning the ball over. They look careless and they look stagnant. And the Warriors are like the ultimate team to punish you being stagnant like that. So you can't allow that to happen, especially against that specific lineup. But I do think that the Warriors, they're still an elite team, but I think their reputation has sort of carried them a little higher than I think they really currently are right now. I mean, if we go back like 3 weeks, most people weren't even picking them to go to the finals out of the West. A lot of people were picking the Suns. There's just a lot of question marks about this Warriors team. And then all of a sudden, once the playoffs starts, those question marks, they answered a lot of them. But I don't think that this Warriors team is as scary as some of the Warriors teams in the past. There's just certain things that I think a lot of people are still remembering them for from years back. The biggest example to me is Klay Thompson. He's still great offensively, but I think his defense, it's not as good as it used to be. And I think that's in large part due to the injury. He's just not as quick-footed. He can't slide as well. And so if you start putting him on a guy like Jaylen Brown, that all of a sudden could be a matchup that can be exploited. I'm not saying it's going to be because Klay's not a terrible defender, but he's not the elite defender that he once was. The thing with Jordan Poole, once again, this death lineup does not have the same defensive prowess that some of their old death lineups did. So we'll see how the series goes. For the Celtics, like I said, the key there is they have to utilize their size advantage. If they don't, all of a sudden we could see situations in which Rob Williams gets played off the court. That sort of happened at the end of the Miami series where they just went small ball and they just took him off because he, whenever he got the ball offensively, he was getting stripped in the paint, and the Warriors are going to do that same thing. So they have to utilize their size advantage, and they can't get into those little stagnant moments. And for the Warriors, I think the key to watch is going to be specifically Clay and Jordan Poole's defense, and then Steph Curry, because the guy's never won a Finals MVP, so he might be extra motivated in this series. Just go off. My official prediction, Celtics in 7. Got to ride with my team.
This is very tough because kind of similar in these two teams. And I think what helped the Celtics we saw last round, they're like 7-8 deep, like reliably 7-8 deep. Not this, oh, they have 7. Derek White was a starter for the Spurs. Frick got traded. And Peyton Pritchard probably could be a solid 6-man for a lot of people. And same with Grant Williams. He could pretty much a starter for any other teams. The fact that any of those guys can soak up minutes and contribute helps. It is a tough series to predict. Boston, obviously, I'm very confident in their defense. But once again, this Warriors offense, very different. Could be very different than Miami. It's you have to defend everybody for 24 seconds because of all their off-ball movement and the fact that, yes, the ball may be in Draymond's hand, but Steph's doing a lot of things. Clay's doing a lot of things. Guys are cutting. Their offensive system can be exhausting to guard, but they also have these. We saw it in Dallas. We saw it at that huge blowout in Memphis and in a couple other games where they have moments in games where they just don't take care of the basketball. Most concerning thing for the Celtics, though, I think, is you already alluded to, is you can't go on those offensive droughts like you could against Miami. But end of day, size is a skill, especially in a long series like this. like you mentioned, isn't the Warriors of the 72 win Warrior or 73, I forget, where that team was incredibly deep, could win in different ways. Obviously, they don't have KD anymore. You mentioned Clay is a little bit lesser than, and Steph has struggled in the finals before. I'm going with the Celtics here, in 7 as well. It's tough. I could easily see Warriors 7, but I don't think Al Horford's going to get played off the court. Even if Robert Williams struggles at times, I think he'll be available in key moments. But worst case scenario, you play more Grant Williams.
Or Derek White. You can go even smaller.
I was about to go with Derek White.
Just real quick, I'll say
Yeah.
this. I would not be shocked if we see a lot of Derek White. Like I talked about with the Heat and the off-ball stuff and these weird, screens that you're running around. Derek White was, in my opinion, the best Celtics defender at stopping that stuff. I think we could see a lot of Derek White.
And I said this before the game 7. I felt the Celtics are a better matchup against the Warriors and the Heat, just because I think their defense is a little bit more cohesive, and you're going to have to communicate against Golden State. Like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of I'm not sure what Ime's plan is, if they're going to do a lot of switching or stuff like that. But regardless, your guys going to be going through a lot of screens. You're going to have to talk a lot and be on the same page, chasing Steph and Clay around. And I'm not saying this is a prediction, but I have a feeling Ime is going to find some way, especially to pressure Draymond, because he's usually the main point of their offense, find a way to make him uncomfortable so that he just can't survey at the top of the key and make the pass. I do expect it to be a long series, a lot of adjustments back and forth. And I do want to credit, once again, Ime Udoka made a lot of minor adjustments and continuous minor adjustments within the game, between games. And I think that's going to be key for the Celtics.
I do want to add real quick, because obviously I am a Celtics fan. So if you're still watching and you feel like I've been a little bit biased, here's some critiques of the Celtics that I think the Warriors could take advantage of. We talk about all this off-ball stuff. I think Jaylen Brown, I don't want to say he's a bad off-ball defender, but I think out of all the players on the Celtics main rotation, outside of like Peyton Pritchard, he's probably the worst. He doesn't have amazing foot quickness, and he's not that good at fighting through screens. I would be a bit surprised if we saw him, for example, guarding Klay Thompson. I think most likely Udoka is going to try and put him on Andrew Wiggins, who's probably the least deadly off-ball player outside of Draymond, but he's not going to guard Draymond. So I think they're going to be very specific in some of their matchups, because the Celtics, although they are a really great defense, once again, there's just certain things that you can exploit in their defense. Like I said, Jaylen Brown, even sometimes Jason Tatum, he can get frustrated at different points in the game, and he can commit some really dumb fouls. So it'll be interesting to see overall. Like I said, this series, it can go any different ways. It's going to be fun though.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see, if Steph can get going in the finals. Like you mentioned, he hasn't really been. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe.